Match day 23 from the Vodacom Bulls that will take on the Nova Fit Griffons is as follows. At number 1, Gerard Steenkamp from Nakabule. Number 2, Jan Hendrik Wessels from Pretoria. Number 3, Francois Kloppe from Tene. Number 4, Ruan Vermaak, Nakabule. 5, Janko Swanepoel, Pretoria. By the way, Pretoria Rugby Club. Marcel Coutier at 6 from Nakabule, the captain. Number 7, Carl Brink from Centurion Rugby Club. At 8, Nizam Kar from Harlequins. 9, Embros Papir, UP Tuks. 10, Chris Smith from Harlequins. 11, David Creel from Centurion. 12, Chris Barrent Smith from Harlequins. 13, Stedman Gans from Northern Rhinos. At 14, Cornel Hendricks, Northern Rhinos. And 15, Johan Hussein, Nakabule. The impact squad is as follows. Simpiwa Matanzima from Nakabule. 17, Joe Van Sale from Harlequins. 18, Mornay Smith from Centurion. 19, Reinhard Ludwig, UP Tuks. 20, Mihlali Mosi from Centurion Rugby Club. 21, Keegan Johannes, UP Tuks. 22, Sibongile Novuga, Nakabule. And 23, Wandisile Similane, Centurion Rugby Club. Kenneth, do you want to kick us off or you want to go a little bit later on?
No, I'm happy to go. Thanks, Lunga. Morning, Jake.
Morning.
Jake, I know teams don't like to talk about revenge, but I'm sure the guys felt good beating the Pumas at their home ground after what they did to you at Loftus, and obviously the Griffons were the other team that beat you early doors. Is there, if not revenge, is there a sense of putting things right that went wrong during that really tough period for you guys?
Ken, I mean, I think you'd understand any sports star, whether it's golf, cricket, tennis, doesn't like to lose. As you say, it's not revenge. We know they beat us. To get a win at Mbombela Stadium last week was obviously fantastic, but also important for our campaign. You know, if you consider that after 4 rounds we hadn't won a game and we had 3 points, and considering now we still got a chance to make the playoffs, I mean, I think it's been a good effort from our guys as well. So it's no different this week. We got the Griffons at home at Loftus. They did beat us last time we played. We know we have to win this game anyway if we want to stay in contention for the playoffs. So it's much bigger than that, Ken. Now, it's not a one-off, as in all energies into changing what happened in the past. It's about staying alive in the competition. So there's a lot of excitement. We've trained quite nicely this week, and they're looking forward to playing back at Loftus this Friday night.
Cool, thanks, Ken. Yeah, Spook, go for it.
Morning, Lunga. Thank you. Morning, Jake. Coach, I just wanted to find out that your team, I mean, you could win a lot of URC games with that team. How do you keep the guys' standards high, their motivation where you needed to be for a Currie Cup game, against Griffin, who only have a 1-1 game in their history, which was the last encounter?
Yeah, I mean, Sabu, I mean, it's difficult. I will say that I can sense that the players are tired now. This is the 46th week of our year. But, I think that we've entered the competition. To give it credence and to give it justice, we got to obviously, give ourselves a chance to compete in it. There's no use putting your name down for a competition and then you don't want to, you don't want to be there at the back end of the competition. So, yeah, it is a difficult, I suppose, motivator for everybody. But I've got the buy-in from the players that, while we still got a chance and while we put our name down for this comp, we've got to do as best we can.
If I can just have a follow-up question, we've also entered into transfer silly season as well, and a couple of your players, Lizo Proboka has been mentioned, going to the Stormers. But also the future of SBU NKOSI seems to there be a concern about, SBU NKOSI's future, a genuine concern about his future or at the Bulls, but also not just at the Bulls, but his entire career. Can you definitively say that he's got a future at the Union? And can you say, are there efforts to actually make sure that this Springbok career doesn't fizzle to the ground.
Yeah, it would be sad, Sabu. It would be sad if that happens. I mean, I don't think anybody, I've got kids his age, I don't think anybody would like to see someone go from a World Cup winner into, you know, not being guaranteed of playing rugby. He's a talented player. I'm very disappointed with what he wrote on social media. I mean, he knows it. I've had a meeting with him. You know, considering the Bulls let him go and play in a game overseas, you know, to read the comments he made was obviously disappointing. But as I said, you know, he's got to make decisions. He's a big boy now. You know, he's got to make decisions about where he wants to go, and it's not always in anyone else's hands other than the player. You know, so at this point in time, he's got to look and see where, as I said, where he wants to go. But at this point in time, you know, he's not playing well enough. He's not training hard enough. I don't see him enough for him to warrant selection above guys that have been training in the group anyway. So yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not for me to discuss the guy's future. He's as I said, he's a big boy now. He's a World Cup winning Springbok. He's got to make decisions now about where he wants to be, and he's got to make sure that those decisions are in the best interest of both himself and the club.
Thank you, Jack.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fu. Carl?
Jake, morning. Bonus points and points difference will obviously decide who's going through, or most probably decide who's going through. Will we see an all-out attack from the Bulls on Friday night, or?
Yep. Carl, it's a good question. I mean, the reality is what we don't want to do is not give ourselves a chance. I mean, we're also fully aware of the fact that our points difference, having lost badly to the Pumas in the first game, has made us have to catch up, not only points on the log, but points in points difference. So yes, Carl, I mean, it won't be, I mean, it's not going to be sevens, but I mean, the reality is we've got to score as many points as we can if we want to stay alive in the competition. So, you know, it's like, I used an analogy, I used an analogy with the players the other day. If you're -4 in the last round of a golf competition and the leader's on -10 and he's in the clubhouse, you've got to shoot 6 under or better to win that competition. Now, I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what people say is can you, should you, how are you going to do it? You've got to do it if you want to stay alive in that competition and win it. So, you know, the stats are very simple. We're -43. We've got to at least get to a positive points difference in the last game if we want to. And that means we're going to have to score some tries, you know, and not only score tries, is keep them not scoring points against us. You know, often what happens is people think you've got to score 60 points, but if they score 25 or 30, then it's not 60 points, it's only 30, you know. So, you know, it's you got to be careful. You don't get sucked into playing where you think you can just run from everywhere and score points. You've also got to make sure you're watertight in keeping them out as well. Otherwise, as I said, every 7 they score, you've got to score 14 to stay ahead of them.
Great stuff. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Okay.
Carl. Go, boss.
Thanks, Lunga. Morning, Jake. Do you mind if I go in Afrikaans, Jake?
Nee, is reg, praat maar.
Jake, ek weet dit is nog vroeg en daar's nog nie, dis nog nie naby die uitspeel, naby die halfeindronde nie. Ek wil net hoor wat sal dit vir die span beteken om eindtyd te gaan in die Currie-beker kompetisie, veral as hy in ag neem hoe swak die bulle begin het daar in die begin.
Kobus, presies dit. I mean, dis wat ek net nou gesê het vir iemand. Onthou, na 4 games het ons 3 punte gehad en in 1 game gewen nie. So die feit dat ons nou gesamentlike 4de is, en ek weet is nou points difference is maar belangrik, maar nog steeds die feit dat ons nog steeds met 2 rondes lewendig is in daai kompetisie en kan nog steeds, jy weet, as alles goed gaan, kan jy tweede eindig en jy kan 'n tuis-semifinal speel. Beteken ons het hard gewerk en die spelers het baie goed gedoen om hulle geleentheid vir hulle self te gee in die laaste 2 weke. So dit sal baie beteken. Ek dink julle sal almal besef, elke jaar het ek gesê die Currie-beker is maar baie ernstige kompetisie vir ons as 'n unie. Verlede jaar was ons die enigste span wat ons beste spelers gespeel het elke naweek. Ja, en soos ek sê, jy weet, ek is old school. Ek dink die Currie-beker moet al die moet al die krediet gee en al die credence kry wat hy moet kry. Onthou dit was in die alfa en omega van ons game gewees deur die apartheid era. Dit was ons alfa en omega gewees in die tye waar al die Springbokke gespeel het en weer eens dit is die oudste rugby kompetisie wat oudste rugby kompetisie wat jy weet wat nog steeds aangaan. Ek dink is 132 jaar oud. So ja, Kobus, ek hoop dit antwoord jou vraag. Jy weet, dit sal baie vir ons beteken. Spelers het hard gewerk om hulle jy weet deur die weke en met dubbel rondes en URC en Currie Beker games en alles om te back up om seker te maak hulle kry geleentheid om in die eindstryd te speel.
Jake het nou verwys ook daarna dat dit ek dink week 48 is van julle seisoen. Skuil daar so 'n bietjie 'n gevaar daarin dat julle teen die, as mens kyk na die onlangse uitslae teen 'n span speel wat julle veronderstel is om redelik maklik te klop, of is daai druk om die uitspelfase te haal net te groot?
Jammer, wat bedoel jy, Kobus, dat die druk van tussen
ja, of is daai die druk wat daar op julle is om die uitspelfase te haal, dink jy dit sal keer dat die ouens dalk oorgerus is teen die Griffons? Dit is 'n span wat nie veronderstel is om die bulle op loftes te kom klop.
Ja, ek dink die feit dat ons laas hulle teen ons gewen het kan seker maak, jy weet. Ek hoef nie iets te sê nie. I mean nou, jy weet baie keer as jy teen 'n klein unie speel of jy speel teen iemand wat jy verwag is om te wen, kan dit so wees, maar ek dink in hierdie geval die feit dat hulle ons gewen het laas, jy weet, soos ek sê, ek dink nie ons kan in daai selfe gat inval nie.
Dankie Jake, thanks Lunga.
Besier.
Ken?
Thanks, Lunga. Jake, just going back to when you were talking about playing attacking rugby and obviously still trying to make sure the guys don't just try and run from anywhere. I just wanted to pick your brain a bit on how the URC finished up with Munster winning it. Now, Munster were a team who held onto the ball more than any other team probably in the competition. And I mean, I think for the last several years, you know, rugby went from teams almost not wanting the ball because of the fear of conceding penalties and that sort of thing. Do you think rugby's changing back again? Do you know, have the law interpretations meant that keeping possession is now a bit more favourable than it has been recently?
And it's a really interesting question. I'll tell you why, because yesterday an Australian journalist asked me exactly the same question. And he asked me about, you know, the game, do you think the game is, you know, needs to change? And I think that, let me say this to you, Ken. That is more of an outlier that they won holding onto the ball. In other words, I'm glad that they did, and I'm glad that they got rewarded for that. But it's an outlier to most competitions. And I'll tell you why I say that. Rugby is the only ball sport in the world where you don't need the ball to win. I mean, games can get won with 26% territory and 25% possession, and you can still win the game. Now, the reason I share that with you is we need to look at ways in which that can change, because if it's a ball sport, you need to have the ball in your hands, and you should be rewarded by keeping the ball in your hands. So I don't think that is because they won, because the laws have changed or the interpretations have changed. I think that's an indication that an outlier is possible. But I'm going to share this with you, Ken, give you a quick rugby lesson. If you kick the ball out and I throw it in, and I throw it in straight, and I lift correctly, and I don't double bank, and I don't preload, and I win the ball, and I start to maul, the very first words the referee says after that is use it. And the reason he says that is because he wants the defense to get a chance to get the ball back. Okay? If you knock the ball on and the ball goes into the scrum and we hook it and we hold it at the 8th man's feet, he says use it. Now, again, that is to allow the defense to actually get the ball back. If you have the ball and you keep it for 10 phases and you get to a breakdown and your scrum half is about to play it, he'll say use it. If you keep the ball in the 22 and you 2 yards from the try line, you're not allowed to dot it down against the upright. It was a new law they brought in. You could score tries against the upright years ago. Now you can't. So it's another example of you're not allowed to score another try there. Now, the point I'm trying to make to you, everything in rugby is designed for the defense. That's why you can win a game of rugby now without having the ball, and you you can, as I said, you kick the ball, you don't have it, you give it to them, you make lots of tackles, you can win the game. Okay. Now, I'm going to answer this question and say to you, I think what happens, like everything, rugby will go in cycles. There will be a time where they'll have to go and reward teams that keep the ball. They'll have to reward teams that build pressure by attacking. It's a little bit like in the old days, the Auckland Blues were the most attacking side. They dominated Super Rugby. They had the best attack. Then it went into another cycle where defensively teams could play and win games, and the Crusaders were very good at offsides and no rucks and all that sort of stuff where they didn't have to come through the gate. Then the laws changed. Then the Brumbies could keep the ball for 25 phases and build pressure. And then the guys said, well, how do we ever get the ball back? If you've got the Brumbies keeping it for 25, 30 phases, how do we get it back? And so what I'm saying is that it's not just provincial games, it's the whole game itself that it goes in cycles. As coaches work out, Ken, on how to defend, then the lawmakers are busy helping the attacking team. And once you then find out how you can keep the ball for 20 phases, then the lawmakers and the decision makers on the game find a way in which you can give the ball back to the defense. So look, taking nothing away from Munster, I think it's fantastic that they played the way they did and they won keeping the ball. It is an outlier to where the game is. But you're right. I think it is something that's it will happen on its own, kid. As I said, I don't think it's the lawmakers will go and actively sit down. I think that it will be, you look at, and again, bit of an old history guy. I remember stories where front row forwards and locks used to pass the ball to each other in the change room because they wouldn't touch it in the game. Now you've got forwards passing, catching, running decoys, offloading. So the game has significantly changed anyway. I think that the shape of the game will continually grow, and I wouldn't be surprised if the next cycle, I don't know when it will be, but the next cycle will happen to reward sides that keep the ball and have possession. Because as I said, Ken, it's a really interesting thing that you can play a ball sport and win it without the ball.
Cool. Thanks, Ken. Kobus, is that an old hand or a follow-up?
No, Lunga, it's an old hand. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Sbu, before we take your follow-up, Ashfaq.
Thanks, Lunga. Hi, Jake. Latching on to what you said now about how the game is played, I find your selection interesting. You've got 3 flowers in the back line. I don't know, just you're changing things up now, but I guess there's many ways to skin a cat. So that's also another way, having several playmakers. What do you hope to achieve with that kind of selection?
Yeah, in fact, a lot of teams have 3 fly-offs. Look at the Stormers. They've got, like, everyone can play fly-off there as well, and they've been the dominant team in South Africa. So, I've said it many times as well. It's not a case of fly-off. It's guys that can actually play at 10. And the more we can interact, you've heard my philosophy on backlines, is the more players you can have that are comfortable in different numbers on their back, the better your attack will be anyway. So going forward, and I'm not about this week, I'm saying even when we develop our team over the next couple of years, I would love a situation where once you're in multi-phase, if you get the ball as first receiver, or if you have to get it at second receiver, you're as comfortable in making decisions that needed to be made on attack, in terms of whether you kick or run. One of the best Australian sides, they had Burke, who was a fullback. They had Latham at fullback, who was a fullback. They had Joe Roffers, who was a fullback. They had Stephen Larkham, who played fullback. So again, the interesting thing is, the All Blacks had won a World Cup. They had 3 guys playing that could play fullback as well, Dag and Corey Jane and Mulsmiliaina. So again, I don't think that I'm doing anything different to the way the game is and the way it's been. I'm really looking for players that are comfortable to get the ball in different parts of the field, get it at different passes, either first pass, second pass, having different playmakers, hopefully make the right decision. Because I think, again, that's part of answering what I said to Ken now. The game, the more attackers you have and the more options you give your attack, the more stress you put on the defense. And at this point in time, defending teams have probably got all the love from the referee. So yeah, it's I suppose it's an interesting observation you make, Ashfaq. But you know, it's not just for this week. It's purposefully done on the basis that we want to try and develop and grow our decision making and our attacking skills in the backline.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was thinking broader picture, bigger picture further down the line also, because I guess you must try and keep the defense guessing as well. So you don't want just one general who they can easily target and then you're stuck there and you don't know what to do.
100%. I mean, that's exactly that. You know, as I said, it's not just for this week. I mean, it is the resources. We have got no Kanan, we got no Kirtley. They're away. Stravino Jacobs is injured. You know, so he hasn't played for a while as well. So I mean, again, through what we have in terms of selection availability and through the philosophy we have as a team, you know, it's an opportunity for us to, as I said, to see how a combination works with 3 10s or 3 guys that can play 10. You know, I mean, let's be fair. I think a guy like Byron Smith playing 12 can play 10, but he has generally played center as well. So it's an interesting thing to see how our attack looks with 3 guys that are comfortable to get the ball anywhere in the passing game.
Jake, just finally on the actual game, the Griffons, you know, they've given some teams bloody noses this season. Even last week, the Sharks, it was 9-7 at halftime, and then they won. So, you know, how do you sort of stem that tide, because they're gonna come early on hard and try and be in your face?
Yeah, the one thing, I mean, Ashfaq, the one thing about them is they've come up from the Premier, you know, the Premier 1 or whatever we call it. You know, and they haven't been blown away yet. I mean, the reality is they've been very, very resilient, and they've been very, very tough in all the games they've played. You know, they might have ended up losing at the back end of a game, but I mean, they've never once gone away. You know, so. Yeah, I mean, the answer is simple. We got to make sure we play well, you know, and as I said just now, I mean, we're not going to go in with complacency. They beat us last time, you know, so there's no ways that I need to say anything. This is a team that beat us, and not only do we need to win, we need to win well, and we need to play well. That's also important.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you, Ashfaq. Smooth with the final question.
Thanks, Lunga. Coach Jack, final one from me is, where are you on the increase of the salary cap? I know you've had quite a few opinions about broadening squads, but I believe the Bulls were quite under the previous cap. Does it mean that you guys are ready to splash?
Yeah.
Can we see a Cheslin Colby or that profile of marquee player now that you've got, you know, a superstar marquee allowance as well? What does it mean for the Bulls?
Yeah. So Sabu, I want to answer it by saying to you, I'm not quite sure what they've decided. I know they had some sort of idea, and then there was, again, another discussion about moving it to something else. So at this point in time, I don't get involved in how much we're going to spend, in the number of players we allowed, how many marquee. You know, I think once it's all finalized, you know, I trust my CEO and the board to make those decisions in terms of how much we can put in. What I will tell you is that we obviously have owners and board members that really want to do well. They understand that it comes at a cost, and they're willing to back that vision with whatever they need to back it with. You know, so you know that's as fortunate as I can be as a coach, is that I know that I have a board and I have owners that really want the Bulls to be a powerhouse team. And whatever the framework is, or whatever the rules are, whatever the regulations are, we will stay within those regulations and see whether or not we can, you know, as I said, build a team that's going to be powerful for the next couple of years.